Welcome to the Freedom Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Duggar. Now, as an entrepreneur, sometimes there is an opportunity, or there's a potential for burnout to occur. And that can also often occur when somebody is an owner and an operator. And as they are seeking to scale their business, they continue in that operator role and that operator mindset. Not only can that impact them with regards to burnout, but also the possibility of scalability and systems that would be put in place. Now, my guest today, Pete Moore, knows a lot about these concepts and works with others in simplifying entrepreneurship. Now, Pete, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Zach. I'm looking forward to our conversation today and talking all about helping business owners move from operator to owners of their business. And I mean, that's why we all get into business, right? It's because we have this dream of a better life. And if we're mired down in the frustration of 50, 60, 70 hours a week, pounding through all the decisions in your business and that never ends, then you're not really free, are you?
Absolutely. Now, the freedom that we are seeking in becoming a business owner definitely can be impacted if you're just continuing to be in that mindset of having to work all of the hours and do every role all the time. I can speak from my personal experience, and I'm certain you can from yours as well. So let's get to that a little bit in regards to the experience that you've had as an entrepreneur. Where did you get your foundation in that world? And then talk a little bit about the progression.
Sure. Long story short is I grew up in a family. My dad did own a business, but ran a big business.
Okay.
And my mom was entrepreneurial, always doing little things. And I started off like you hear a lot of times, with cutting lawns and making crafts and selling them to stores and different things, and had little
Yep.
businesses along the way. Had my first real business after going to business school, and I bought a franchise, cleaning, or it was a bathroom renovation company that's
Okay.
almost 30 years old now. It's still going today. I haven't owned it since 2009, but I'm proud to say that it's still going and doing well. And then while I had that bathroom remodeling franchise, I also bought another franchise that was struggling, and we grew it. It was a cleaning franchise, and we grew it from 30 customers to 300 customers, and then we sold it as well. I became a business broker, helping people buy and sell businesses. And for the last 13 years, I've been a retailer. We own a couple of shoe stores here in Canada called Shoetopia. And
Okay.
so I'm a retailer, and I spend most of my time these days with simplifying entrepreneurship, helping other entrepreneurs, like we talked about, move from operators of their business to owners of their business. With my shoe stores, I basically work, give or take, a day a week with those stores as I've moved into the owner's position of that, and not doing all of the day-to-day decision making and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
now I spend most of my time working with all sorts of different business owners that want to do the same.
Okay. So you were able to, with Shootopia in particular, move into more of that owner, not just as an operator, but being able to have that benefit of owning a business and the benefit of owning a business really at the
Yeah.
same time.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
interesting, Zach. Like my time as a business broker, when I worked at helping people buy and sell businesses, it was really interesting because the businesses that the owner was the operator were hard to sell,
mhm.
because people don't necessarily want to buy themselves a job. They can go work for somebody else and not have all the risks of being a business owner. So, if all you want to do is, works 50, 60 hours a week for minimum wage, you can do that for someone else and not have to worry about, hiring people, firing people, paying rent, all these different things that go along with being a business owner, and the stresses and
Yeah.
struggles. So, the idea was to elevate through that and have the business running on rails so that it becomes an investment. And when it's
Yeah.
an investment, then it's your choice whether you want to keep that as part of your portfolio, or whether you want to move it out and, take that money and spend it somewhere else. But ultimately, it's interesting when we start, because in order to set your business up for the best possible
Mhm.
selling price, you want to have all these processes in place, and you want to have it running on rails, because that's when you're going to get your highest ticket. So, but at the same time, it's also, once people get it to that point, they're like, I'm not as frustrated as I used to be. I kind of like this business anyway, and it is a good investment. Maybe I'll keep it. So the beauty of it is once you get it to that level, it's your choice. It's your freedom to do what you want with it, right?
Yeah, no, and you make a very good point that I don't think that many people often think about at the beginning is the potential of that exit strategy that they need to consider as time goes on, because they could get burnt out in that working 50, 60 hours per week or more and decide,
80.
well, I
Yeah.
built this up and now I'm
Yeah.
going to sell it. But like you just said, it's not worth as much as if you were having set systems in place and made it so that you are able to step back and not work as many hours. You've also increased the value at the same time as well as your choices. Yeah.
Once a business gets to a certain level, like if it's a solopreneur type business, I get it. But once
Yep.
it gets to a certain level, then basically people that are going to come in and buy that business probably don't want to be in that situation where they're literally doing everything, and they're also worried about it. They're like, well, if all the concepts and processes and everything are in the owner's brain, and let's say the owner's partners involved and kids are involved, and there's a lot of sort of close connections. What
Yep.
happens if I take this business over and all of those people leave? The whole brain and organization of that business leaves. That's very scary for a lot of people that would look at coming into a business. And my suggestion is you want to set yourself up so that that's not the case, not only because you might want to sell your business in the future, but it's also probably in your best interest. That one of my sayings is decisions should be made at the lowest possible level of your organization.
Okay.
So I'll say it again because I think it's important. Decisions should be made at the lowest possible level of the organization. And if you, as the business owner, are making all of the decisions, big and small, there's a problem.
Yeah. No, and that's a very good point. That's worth repeating again. Decisions should be made at the lowest possible level. If it always has to go back to the business owner, especially as the business scales, it can slow things down, bottleneck, cause frustration, stress, and other problems that I'm probably not even listing here.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
endless. And so I came up with this framework, Zach, and
mhm.
it's called the CPA, and that's not your certified professional accountancy, as a lot of people
Yeah.
in business would consider a CPA, but it's actually mastering as the leader of your business. Take this year and master these three things and do whatever you can do to learn and understand these three things. Being a better communicator, that's your C. Your
Hmm.
P is being a better person to manage process. How are you managing process? And the third one is to offload those processes, which is accountability. So master your communication, your process management, and your accountability in your business, and you'll have a business that starts to run like this. It will start to run on rails. And one of the things with accountability, which is really interesting, because
Yep.
especially if you're a founder, you're used to making all the decisions because you had to. Most founders don't have a big back pocket stuffed full of money. They've had to make all of the calls along the way, and we get habitualized into making the calls, and then we don't know how to actually release the accountability. And if there's one thing from this sort of segment of this, is that it's okay. And I'll grant permission, because I find it's interesting that people need permission, but I'll grant permission to you, the listener, to release accountability, because a lot of times we feel that we can't, and we don't either. We say we don't trust them. That's a word. Trust comes into play, and it's like, is it that you don't trust the person, or is it that you don't trust the process? Because if you don't trust the person, well, they probably shouldn't be working for you, right? So if that's not the case, then what's the problem? The process is the problem. And the process is probably you haven't got it out of your head into a manageable area of how to do this, which is, it's either written down or it's video with a loom or any of these different things. There's many different ways to train process, but managing the process of that and getting it out of your head or out of anybody else's head that you have to then transfer to someone else, and then transferring that accountability and actually letting them do it. not just giving them the title, but actually saying you are accountable. And most of our team, if they believe in our promise, if they believe in what we're doing and all that stuff, they want accountability.
Yeah, no, I like that. The trust is a big factor there. And if you can't trust the person, then perhaps they shouldn't be the person that's working for you or in that role. So actually then having to look at the process that's part of the problem to be able to get to where you can allow them the accountability or the opportunity to have the accountability for that task.
Yeah.
That's very much something that I know personally I had issues with along the way as I was a founder, originator of a business and grew that and had difficulties along the way of being able to trust the person with the process, but it really wasn't the person. It was the process and being able to have that set system in place to know that it will be done and that they can be accountable for it.
It's so interesting when you think of that framework, isn't it, Zach?
Yeah.
This idea. It's like, well, you're thinking in your head, well, I just don't trust them to get it done. Well, why
Yeah.
don't you trust them? Because everybody talks about our core values and integrity and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, listen, if they don't have integrity and you don't trust them, why are they working for you in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
So usually when we use those words, I just don't trust them to get it done, it means that you don't trust the process, not the person.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Absolutely. So, talking a little bit about communication
Yeah.
as part of that framework, and
Yeah.
it's an area that is absolutely important, not for the business owner, but also for those that are directly under them that they're trying to develop and help lead different segments of the organization or take over portions from the direct owner of the company. But sometimes that communication can break things down if it's not done in a way that supports what that original owner has indicated or the manner in which they would have approached things or just in general in regards to what their expectations are. But talk a little bit about what you are referring to when you said communication.
Yeah. I think, there's so much around communication. We could talk for a day on it,
Very true.
uh, but ultimately, as you move up the let's call it the corporate ladder, the accountability chart into the owner's box from operator, communication becomes more and more your key role.
Mhm.
It's communicating the promise, communicating what it is that you do, why you do it, and who you do it for, and how you're making your client's life better. And when you communicate that in every given way to all of the people involved in your business, whether it's your team, whether it's your clients, whether it's all of your suppliers that need to know how they are helping you deliver your promise to your customers, so that everybody can make decisions based on the promise. And when there's full clarity, decisions get made without process sometimes, and they get made without process 90% of the time the right way, as opposed to 10% of the time the right way, because there's full clarity of what the goals are. And so as you're becoming a better leader and moving up this corporate chart, you're always strengthening and always working around the clarity of the purpose and what it is that you're doing in every meeting that you have, in every conversation that you have, all around those things. And the best way to do that is to have, your guiding principles lead almost every conversation of your business. And I work a lot with people on guiding principles and really understanding that and living that. And so it gets into meeting structures, it gets into almost everything. I mean, clarity of meeting structure is really an important piece too from the leader. It's like, how are you communicating with your direct reports? And how are you getting the information that you need to lead your business, and them getting the information as to your vision and direction of what you want to happen?
Yeah. 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 I mean, the clarity on vision or the guiding principles that you've mentioned is a great foundational point to be able to then communicate that with the team and those that are carrying out that vision for the owner and the leader. I know for, again, personal experience speaks at times like this, working for some companies, the employees, the expectations or that purpose that they feel is just to make the owner money. And that might not be the actual intention of the owner, especially in a service-based industry where it's very clear that you're serving people with what you're doing. And that can be really an industry, even retail as well. When you're serving people with the products that you're selling. And so that communication on that aspect, more so than just the monetary aspect, is probably more critical than people realize, because I know, again, people sometimes will formulate ideas in their head. So if the communication hasn't occurred, they're going to start thinking in the wrong way, and that can cause some other issues in the business.
You know what? We start every meeting with good news, and we want to get the good vibes going and all that sort of stuff. But then
Yeah.
we get into the guiding principles. This is what we do. Like at Shootopia, our goal is to help our clients look great and feel fantastic. So
Mhm.
every decision that we have in the shoe stores is around helping our clients do exactly that. And if
Yeah.
if anybody has any question, they can take it back up the ladder to, if nobody's there, what would I do to help them look great and feel fantastic? Well, I'm going to make the decision this way. And then if for whatever reason we as managers and owners don't feel that that was the right decision, then it's a chance to have a coaching conversation with them and
Yep.
say, hey, listen, why did you make the decision? And they say, oh, we made it because we did this, this, and this in order to help them look great and feel fantastic. And that becomes a conversation for you to coach through, or to make a new piece of the process if you need to. Right.
Yeah.
And so those kind of things around how you lay that stuff out is very important in the communication, because there's our communication up and down the chain. And the process, if we need to tweak the process, there are no perfect processes. We're always tweaking them and making them a little bit better in order that next time things come into play, the consumer or customer experience is even better. Right. And
Right.
so, all of these things come into play with communication and process. And then who owns it? That's the
Mhm.
accountability, right? CPA.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. It simplifies these concepts in a way that's it's memorable, and for the person who is learning this to then apply it in their business and with their teams. When we spoke before, there were other frameworks like that you and I had spoken about, the 5 Ps, and just
Yeah.
things that trying to make it so it's clear, memorable, something that can be applicable. Is that the approach that you take in general when helping business owners to simplify entrepreneurship?
Zach, being a business owner has been around for a long time. And
Yep.
you know, it's beautiful that it has. But ultimately, it's not that easy all the time. And a lot of business owners are sort of have 1,000 things on the go, and all this stuff and papers piled and all sorts of ideas going on. And sometimes it's just, and I've had to do this myself. I mean, this is why I coach the way I do, because I live this. And it's like, how do you make sense of all the craziness sometimes? And I
Mm,
find that frameworks and models and tools, when we can overlay them onto a situation, make sense so that we can make a decision. Because as business owners, our biggest job is to make decisions.
yeah.
We need to make decisions. And when we started by saying decisions need to be made at the lowest possible level, well, ultimately, if you there's it's there's talk around there that we make about 35,000 decisions in a day. But if you're
Wow.
literally making and wasting all of your decision making juices on all of the lowest level decisions, you don't have time to make the bigger ones, or the mental focus or energy to make the bigger ones, right? And so what I've tried to do with a lot of the tips and tools and tricks and sort of frameworks and things that I have and I work with my clients is really, let's get it out of your head onto a piece of paper or onto your iPad or whatever the case is, with a framework that can pull out these ideas and help you or your team make decisions. Because one of the things that's really cool is when you start using some of this stuff for yourself, and then you start helping your team use them too, because they're in the same boat. They need to
Mhm.
make decisions, and they need to make the decision at their level so that you don't have to. Right?
Yeah.
That's when freedom comes. This podcast is called The Freedom Founder. It's like, hey, what do you want? You want freedom of time. You want freedom of money. You want freedom of purpose. Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach has a great sort of freedom foundation that he uses, and freedom of relationship is another one in there that he uses too. But ultimately, as business owners, these are the freedoms that we want. And if you're mired down in making every single decision, and here's a way, if you get home at night and you are completely physically and mentally fatigued, then you probably have some work to do as far as freeing yourself up, as far as setting some process, as far as aligning and assigning your accountabilities. Because I've got another concept and framework. It's called love it or leave it. And we're having this conversation, Zach. I love having these conversations with people like you. I love having these conversations with business owners. It gets me excited. It gets me, when I finish these, I do not feel mired down and tired and worn out and ready to go to bed. I feel ready to go. And so what I want for the owners that I work with is them to feel that way all the time. Right?
Yeah.
To be working in their true love it zone that's making the most out of their time in their business and outside of their business, whatever they determine that to be. Because it's unique for every single person. Some people like to be front stage. Some people like to be backstage. Some people, and it's unique for every person. But whatever it is for you, you should be working in that zone as much as you can, that freedom zone, right? And that love it zone, as I call it. But, when you are, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like play. It feels like something. It's like I could do this all day long, and I'm good. It's when you're feeling completely worn out and tired and all of that stuff, you're not working in your love it zone. And the interesting thing is, what you don't like, somebody else probably does. So now we got to go to work to find out who that is.
Yep, absolutely. And I really like that point that you can come home at the end of the day. Simple assessment here. Are you worn down? Are you exhausted? If you're getting enough sleep and you're doing all the other things correctly and you're still feeling that way, then there's a problem. And as an owner, I mean, just the complexity of thinking through having all these decisions, and especially those that are in the area that would be in that leave it category, that just wear on a person, that is a good sign that something needs to be changed. And absolutely would encourage people who have not considered working with a coach or a mentor, somebody who can help them identify a process, frameworks, and systems that they can put in place for themselves that they could then carry forward into their business, because they're not only benefiting themselves, but like you said, Pete, you are now benefiting their leaders below you and those executives, those other directors, and those other managers, so that they can then take it and apply that same type of approach in their work that they are doing with their employees that are directly underneath them as well.
It gets exponentially more powerful when it goes down the chain of command, essentially. Like when you are helping the people that are your direct reports work in their love it zone, think about loyalty to your business. It's like, if they truly love what they're doing every day, at least 80% of the time, let's say, they're going to want to continue to work with you. And at a time of all of craziness, as far as people shifting jobs and all this different things, hard to find people. I mean, we see it all the time. But in fact, if you're helping people really work in their love it zone within your business, then you're going to look like a hero to them.
Yes.
And they're going to want to stay. They're going to want to live your promise. They're going to want to help you out because you're helping them out by helping them work in the area that they love to. And it doesn't feel like work then. It feels like we're all working towards the promise, which is the first of those 5 Ps that we talked about. It's where everything starts. It's where your job is as the leader. It's understand that promise and communicate it to all.
Yeah. Be the hero that you would want to have for yourself as well. I like that as well. Now, I'm going to ask a few additional questions here before we end the segment, but wanted to ask one, if you were to be asked for one tip from an entrepreneur or somebody who's interested in entrepreneurship, what's one big key that you would give to somebody if you would only have one piece of advice to give?
Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone.
Okay.
And that's okay. It's okay. If you've been thinking about being an entrepreneur forever and a day and you're all of this sort of stuff, entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. Sometimes it's okay not to run your own business. And for those that are an entrepreneur, and those, like for me, I would not change it for the world. It's been a
Mhm.
great life. I love the businesses that I've had. And yes, there's been ups and downs along the way, lots of them, both ways. But ultimately, it's a life that I want to live. And there is risk, and there is, some great reward. But ultimately, it's just not for everybody. So understand who you are and whether you're willing to go through the risks in order to get the rewards. Some people just like steady, and that's
Yep.
okay.
Yep. Solid point. I like that. And now I ask this question of all my guests. If you were to be handed $1 million, no strings attached, how would you invest that in your current business or another endeavor, and why?
Zach, I invest a lot of money in myself and in my team.
Hmm.
And it's for coaching, it's for learning, I have this belief. And a long time ago, I went to a Tony Robbins event, and this is probably 25 years ago. And I remember, I think it was a concept called NOL, or I can't remember what it was, but it was basically the idea around never ending learning. And I can't
Yep.
remember his framework for it, but the
Okay.
idea was around never stop learning. And
Yep.
from my perspective, you know, I feel that, and I'm taking a new certification next week on Colby analysis. I mean, I'm always learning new things and investing in myself so that I can help my clients through that. And I'm
Yep.
always on the team that I have. I'm always investing in their learning too, because I want them to be even better versions of themselves. And
Yep.
it's my feeling that if we're always upping ourselves and upping our teams, that business is going to be better and life is going to be better as the business owner, because your business and your life are tied together. It's yin and yang. Let's face it, Zach. Like, as much as we try and delineate stuff, it's not really delineated, completely when you're a business owner. And
Yep.
so you want to have both of those things be always elevating. And if I had the money to do that, I would just keep pouring into my business and my team, because when my team
Mhm.
gets better, the business gets better. When the business gets better, my life gets better. Life is good.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Exponential growth as well. It's just in that process, like you had said earlier, and the giving back to your team and learning the structure and frameworks that you can then put in place in your business and develop others with.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to reach out to you to find out more about the work you're doing or the coaching that you do, what's the best way for someone to connect with you?
Best way really is just to go to Simplifying Entrepreneurship. If you Google Simplifying Entrepreneurship, you will find me, my podcast, my business, all of that stuff. I hang out on LinkedIn, mostly socially, so you can search for me there at Pete Moore, Mohr, and those are the best social channel and the best way to get hold of me.
Perfect. I like that. It keeps it simple.
Yep.
Simplifying entrepreneurship. Pete Moore, Mohr. Definitely check out the work that he is doing. Check out his podcast and get in touch. And if it's not the right fit to talk with Pete about the work you're doing, absolutely encourage people, as always, to find a mentor, find a coach, find someone that can help them continue to get better in the work that they're doing, because it will only make their lives better as well as those that work for them. So, Pete, thank you again for joining me today. I really appreciated this conversation.
It's been a pleasure, Zach. Make it a great day.
Thank you. You too.